Why are Pokemon games so outdated? Now, personally, I have a YouTube channel where I pretty much exclusively play Pokemon, so obviously there may be some bias here, but I've also talked in the past a lot about the issues I have with the franchise, and I can't necessarily give the best ways to improve because I'm not a game developer and I don't work in the businesses and I don't know everything about the businesses, which is something that I need to keep in mind. But I think it's an interesting area of discussion. There's definitely some issues going on with how the games are made in this franchise, and it's okay to talk about that. I think it's completely fine as long as we all have respectful opinions and we don't attack each other and we don't automatically jump to the most negative version of, oh, you like waffles? Why do you hate pancakes? In fact, why do you hate everyone that likes pancakes? I like pancakes. What do you have against me? Like, it's not like that. We all want the games to be the best possible version of what they could possibly be. So let's start. This is a beat 'em ups video right here. I would highly recommend that you go hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you have not on his channel already. Let's get into it. Oh, that's the wrong audio. Whoops, Daisy.
Pokemon games look like and I want to know why. Cards, cafes, stores, toys, plushies, apparel, movies, anime, home goods, stationery, snacks, food.
Well, I thought this was going to end about 5 things ago. Graham snacks? What's a Graham snack? Or like, is it like is it like Graham snack? Sorry, I'm reading what the Pikachu thing says. Is that like Graham crackers that you get in America and all that? Heinz pasta shapes and tomato sauce?
Glue sticks,
what?
shampoo.
Glue sticks?
This stuff.
What is that?
Game Freak have their grubby little hands.
Oh my god, they're making Pokemon Lego. I'm sorry, this is completely separated. I know I'm not gonna be able to get it because I'm pretty sure Lego's like huge, but that would be so, I would love to make some Pokemon Lego.
In literally everything.
Oh, what the hell? Okay, I know that, ooh. There's a lot of ways they could have made Lego Pikachu, and I'm not a massive fan of that one.
When I say Game Freak, yes, I mean Game Freak. Dating back to 1996, Blue and Red are the first instance of the existence of the entity that is Pokemon. And guess who created and owned it at the time? That's right.
Was it Game Freak?
Or more accurately, Satoshi Tajiri and Ken Sugimori. In 1998, 2 years later, Game Freak, Nintendo, and Creatures, the company that made the Pokemon trading card game, came together and co-founded the Pokemon Company.
See, this is where it gets confusing, right? Because you have Game Freak, who oversees the majority of the games. Then you have Nintendo that owns a stake in the Pokemon Company, and obviously the Pokemon games are published on the Nintendo consoles. But then you have Creatures, and Creatures are a different company, and what does Creatures do? And well, okay, so you have the Pokemon Company. They run everything. Like, was games? So Game Freak makes the games, and then it's the Pokemon Company International. Is that Game Freak International? No, because they're a Japanese game development studio. Is that Creatures International?
Since then and to this day, each of those 3 companies own 33% of the franchise that is Digimon. Sorry, Pokemon. Arguably one of the most advantageous.
They should go back to making ads like this. The one where they crush the bus with the Pokemon inside. They need to get a little bit more risky with it.
Business transactions of all time, with Pokemon now being, say it with me, everybody, the
biggest media franchise in the world.
To top $100 billion in revenue.
Woo! Damn, Pokemon. Wish I had 100 billion. Damn, wish that would sponsor me. They don't need to sponsor me. Oh God, what the hell was that? Whoa, where's that going? Whoa, that was all over the place, wasn't it? Yeah, they don't need to sponsor. I make Pokemon videos anyway.
Almost double.
They might not want to sponsor me after this video. we're gonna have an open discussion, okay?
Of the next highest franchise in Disney and exactly 50 NBA jams. So I ask you,
that's so
once
specific
again, and not for the last time, why do the games look like They are the main thing that is Pokemon.
Yeah, well, the main moneymaker in Pokemon is the merchandise. So I think the most direct answer I could give is the games are mostly a vehicle from which to reveal new interesting creatures that you can then make marketable plushies out of. And hey, listen, the Pokemon cards, why does it keep going over there? The Pokemon cards have been massively increasing in the amount of people buying them recently. So maybe that's up there too. But for the most part, it's merchandising. You go to Japan, everything is marketed with some kind of Pikachu or some kind of Squirtle or some kind of Pokemon on it. There's so many things. It's weird because you don't see a lot of stuff like that in more Western countries, but in Japan, it's everywhere. You could go to a pharmacy and you can get medicine. You want to get some painkillers? Oh, you can pick up your pack of painkillers or Pikachu's on it. Well, I trust this one because it's got Pikachu on it.
Cards, merch, and anime, they all draw inspiration from each new video game release. The animes are animated beautifully. Even the spin-off underfunded animes like Pokemon Concierge.
Yeah, that was, that's really cute.
Which has been highly praised for its cheerful atmosphere and its visuals. And I should know, I've watched it twice, and I cried both times. Even the
Really? Is it that good? Okay, I haven't watched that. I've just seen the trailers, but it does look really good. Is it worth a watch?
Pokemon cards. Some of them look so beautiful.
Oh, I mean, the artists they get for Pokemon cards are incredible. Like, some of my... I recently pulled, actually, something pretty fantastic. There's a new Journey Together set that came out, and I pulled the Lily's Clefairy, and first off, I got so excited that I was like, oh, I need to gamble more, I need to buy more packs, I need to gamble more. But after that feeling subsided, I looked at it and I was like, that is really... beautiful art. Like they just do such a good job on it, just every time. Even the weird ones look good most of the time.
Beautiful that people take them and they put them in protective little tiny glass houses. And it's funny because those same people, when you mention how bad the games look, will start throwing stones in those same tiny glass houses. So can we have an honest conversation?
That's what we're gonna do. We're gonna have an honest conversation here today. I think that it's totally fine if you like something to criticize what is potentially a bit bad about it. I think that's totally okay. I think that's good, actually. I think it's healthy to criticize something that you are heavily invested in because you should want it to be the best possible version of what it can be. And I'm sure I'm gonna be called like a hater and a shill over the course of this video as well. I just want to give like my honest thoughts
about why everything else Pokemon branded is of such high quality and production, but the video games are a laughingstock outside of the Pokemon fandom community.
Yeah, I mean, there's gotta be so many reasons. Number one being they have to continually pop out new merchandise, which means they need to continually pop out new games, which means that the games inherently are a bit rushed. So why not scale back the size of the game? Well, if you scale back the size of the game, then people get mad. There's not enough new Pokemon introduced. It's not worth buying. They're ripping you off. You still have to charge full price for a video game. They do spin-offs. You can buy the spin-offs. They're sometimes lower price. If they scale back the size, it's not worth buying. There's a controversy there. If they put too much in, they've overextended themselves and it comes out like, you know, a buggy mess like Scarlet and Violet. And you personally might not have experienced many bugs in Scarlet and Violet, but I think that we can agree that it is objectively quite a buggy and, I'll be honest, ugly game.
Pause.
And this is coming from someone that I like Scarlet and Violet. I think Scarlet and Violet was fun. I have a lot of issues with it. My number one issue that I was thinking about today is why do I have to watch the freaking animations every single time? Why, every single time a Pokemon terastallizes in any battle, I have to watch the 15-second long animation. Every single time was ding, camera pan. And then he does the attack. What? Can we not have like a condensed version like that? Can I get a TLDR for that animation, please? Why do I have to watch the leftovers animation go bring, ting, tring, ring, ring, ring? Then the health bar goes every single time. Can you get like a condensed version? Is there not a shorter way to show that? Why does every animation have to play out separately? Why do you have to watch the leftovers animation, then wait? There's a pause, by the way. There's always a pause in these battles. And then the burn animation goes off. And you're like, okay, yep, that's happened. And then the other side of the field, they're also burned. So you have to wait. There's a pause. And then the burn animation for that Pokemon goes off. It's like, okay. Then the health bar goes down. It's okay, all right. And then, oh, I had leftovers as well. All right. That's like another 20 seconds. And it's like every single turn for no reason. I'm sorry. This is a really specific niche complaint that probably just applies to me and a few other people. But man, I wish we could turn off those animations like the terastallization or the individual status healing things Oh my god, I wish there was options.
I'm gonna stop you right there, buddy. This video is sponsored by Nixie, and if you can't believe it, I've been looking at Switch accessories for almost a decade.
Oh my goodness, I love this music.
Are easily some of the best third-party accessory for the Switch
I
think I've ever seen. I was immediately blown away by the quality of all their products, both in the way
I
they
like the
shipped
keyboard.
them to me that had really
I like the colors
nice
on the keyboard.
packaging. They sent me pretty much their whole
That's a
product
really
range,
cool keyboard.
including this GameCube-inspired keyboard.
Yeah, no, the colors are really... Those colors are right up my alley. Oh, I love that.
You can clearly tell this company cares a lot about the way their buttons feel and sound across all their products. 22 different RGB lighting modes, and I found some user-created modes in the app. The keys are hot swappable, and this
you can do like user-created stuff too. That's really sick.
You can program it so easily. I threw the U Joy-Cons from my logo on mine. Moving on from there, they also do a wireless controller.
That's a crazy controller.
Like an Xbox Elite controller, but you can use it on the Switch and PC and Android and iOS. You know, sometimes like button layouts can get confusing, like Xbox and Switch, they look different. Well, guess what? You pop off the faceplate, you can just move those suckers around wherever you want. So
that's actually insane that you can move buttons around.
Thing is awesome. And then we take a look at the Hyperion 2 wireless joypad.
They have more?
They have such a nice ergonomic design that makes it really comfortable to hold. You have programmable back buttons, Hall effect sticks for zero drift. All of those clicks are so satisfying and addictive and crisp. I
narrowly avoided making a
them.
joke about back shots on the
gyro
Switch.
motion sensing. They also have removable faceplates. These RGB lights are so easy to change. This one, you just press one button and then you can scroll along to change the colors. This is a hell of a way to spruce up your Switch 1 if you plan to keep playing it. There'll be a link down below for Nixie.
If you plan to keep playing it after the Switch 2 comes out soon.
For sponsoring, and thank you guys for supporting my sponsors when I have them. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah, you keep talking.
Back to the video.
Man, this guy doesn't shut up. You know, I heard he skipped all the story in Arceus.
What?
Personally, I'm excited for the new game.
That's crazy.
Pokemon fans will give you 100 excuses when you bring this up about how as long as the games are fun, the visuals don't matter. Yeah, I mean, that is inherently true. I mean, look at Witcher 3, the Switch version. That is...
That's true. Listen, I'm just surprised they got the Witcher 3 running on the Switch. That is a technical masterpiece. How did they do that?
And always has been Nintendo's own mentality. You know, as long as the game is fun, doesn't matter what it looks like. But how long are we going to use that Nintendo expression to excuse poor game development?
Yeah, there's a difference between like an art style, for example, and something just not looking very good. There's a difference between Super Mario doesn't have the best graphics in the world, does it? But it has a really unique art style. It has a really pretty, nice to look at art style that makes you think, ooh, this is full of wonderment and joy. And then Scarlet and Violet has textures that looks like I threw up on the hardwood floor.
Pokemon Legends Z. Don't you leave that comment. But Game Freak are doing their bestest westest. And the game, it's not even out yet. Yeah, I know. I'm sure that impression of you definitely prevented the comment you were about to leave.
Let's see, how many comments are on this video? This video has almost 1 million views as of me watching it. I'm sure it'll have 1 million by the time this video goes up. It's 8,357 comments as well.
Not just about
I wonder how many of them are good.
It's about Game Freak's approach to video game development since they made the Switch to the Switch. So we have a lot to look at. And in the words of Ash Ketchum himself,
you can't undo what's already been done, but you can face up to it.
That's an actual quote. See, I did research. You didn't believe me.
Is that an actual quote? That's right. So, okay, here's the thing. When Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee came out, I thought the characters looked a little bit too Play-Doh-y. I thought that they looked a bit weird. But now reflecting and looking back on it, I can enjoy the art style for what it is. It was a unique art style. It wasn't like perfect or anything, but it was definitely different to what we'd seen before. And it had its own quirks and charm. Art styles like Scarlet and Violet's don't necessarily have their own unique charm to them. Just where the way that you look at the game. The Pokemon themselves definitely have charm. The animations can have charm, the characters can, but the way that the art for the game is built up, this one does not necessarily spark any kind of uniqueness or joy, at least in my house.
I get ahead of this a little bit because I have talked about Pokemon graphics a bunch here on this channel, on my podcast, and whenever I bring it up, people often say the same things, and one of them is, he's not a true Pokemon fan. He skipped all the dialogue in Arceus, so you can't take his opinion seriously. I'm not sure how skipping this
All right, okay. To be fair, like the dialogue in the story in Arceus is I would say, towards more the more interesting end of the Pokemon stories. But how much of the dialogue is just we live in a Pokemon world and we're trying our best to get along with them. Use Pokeballs to catch them. Oh no, they're bad. We need to take care of this.
Very bloated story correlates to my eyes functioning, but
I will say a lot of the dialogue sorry, I'm pausing a lot right now. A lot of the dialogue in these games is essentially exposition, it's more so explaining what the world is and what is going on, more so than building a compelling story or compelling characters. That's not to say that there aren't compelling characters. Don't do the thing. Don't do the pancake thing. Don't do that, okay? That's not to say that is not compelling characters, but it is more so leaning towards the majority of the bloated dialogue that you would like mash A through if you were replaying the game is a lot of exposition. But that doesn't mean there aren't compelling characters. Don't do the pancake thing. I didn't say anything about pancakes, okay?
It seems worth it to try and get ahead of this, so I'm gonna let you know now, I am actually a Pokemon fan. I'm not super hardcore. Like, I haven't made it my whole life.
Okay, I am pretty hardcore. Like,
identity.
I would say I'm pretty hardcore. Like, if you just look behind me, there's well, actually, to be fair, right now, like, if you just look behind me, there is, I don't know if you can really make it out, shelves of Pokemon games. And then, like, you have the Japanese Pokemon games up there next to the base set versions of their cards, and then you have like a bunch of sub noodles, and then small Pokemon down here too, but you have like a bunch of sub noodles, and over there is like Bioshock. I love Bioshock.
I don't have a tattoo.
Oh,
I don't own a Lucario fursuit that I wear on weekends.
That's crazy. Everyone has one of those, right?
Look, I wish I had both of those things. One of my first games was Red. Who could forget playing Gold as a kid? And so many others. In fact, I've played pretty much every mainline Pokemon game. Never played Black and White because it was just that age where I was falling out of Pokemon before I decided to fall back in. And at this point,
no, that's actually I had the same thing when Black and White came out. That was when I was at the point in my life where I was just wasn't playing Pokemon games. I just moved on. I was just doing other things. I think I tried to download an emulator when Pokemon Black and White came out. I tried to download an emulator on my grand's laptop to try and play it on that, and it didn't work. Well, it works. I downloaded it, but it ran at about 3 frames a second, and then I was like, ooh. Okay, I guess I won't play this.
Right now, I'm just waiting for a Black and White remake because everybody says it's the best one. The first time I went to Japan, half the stuff I brought back was Pokemon merchandise. We even made sure to get a reservation at the Pokemon Cafe, and let me tell you, when Chef Pikachu...
What? Wait, how did you get a reservation? When I went to Japan... When I went to Nihondes, I tried my best. It was hard to get a reservation. Those things sell out in seconds. I think people have bots set up and then they sell the reservations on like Fiverr or something. It's ridiculous. It's so hard to get a reservation there. We actually went there physically and stood in line just in case anyone canceled their reservation so that we could then go in and take their reservation. It didn't happen. But I mean, there's a Pokemon Center next to it, so it wasn't a wasted trip.
Came waddling out to ask me if I liked the meal he cooked. I almost wept like a baby.
And you said, Pikachu, your hands are too fat and big, and your fingers don't seem as opposable as it would need to be to cook this dish. How did you do it?
It was so wholesome. What I'm trying to say is I do love Pokemon. But if you were to put a gun to my head and ask me to name a single character in any Pokemon game outside of Professor Oak and my mom, you may as well pull the trigger. You think what I was at?
Ah, come on. You don't remember, Lily? Just had her there.
Playing Red for the first time, I gave 2 squirts a piss about the story. No, I was too busy.
I'm gonna be honest. When I played Red the first time, I couldn't read.
Gambling on slots for a Polygon and riding up and down this one shoreline because I wanted 100 Master Balls. Hell, while I was scripting this video, Kim sent me a text saying she just woke up from a nap dreaming about an old Pokemon toy she had where the Mewtwo had tits.
What?
We're locked in on Pokemon. Why does it have tits? I'm making this video.
I mean, why not? Is there an issue? I see no problem here.
Because I do care. Because 25 million people is a lot of people to buy a video game. But a lot more people bought games like Breath of the Wild and Animal Crossing. And Zelda isn't even in that Wikipedia list of top grossing franchises, which means, yes, it's below NBA Jam. And remember when...
The thing is, if you said, okay, we're going to stop releasing Pokemon games, we're going to make them Baldur's Gate 3 instead. We're going to turn Pokemon games into Baldur's Gate 3. All of them are going to be Baldur's Gate 3. It's going to take 5 years to make each one, maybe more, but they're all going to be Baldur's Gate 3. I wonder what that would do to the franchise. Because that would break everything down. You'd suddenly have no, like, I guess, main series spin-off adjacent things like Legends Arceus and Legends ZA, because I don't think they'd spend 5 years on an experimental thing that isn't necessarily going to sell well. They'll probably stick to the main franchise. But then the main franchise stuff would be like super high quality, hopefully. More time doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a better game. More people doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get a better game. And it would kind of mess up the rest of the franchise in terms of merchandise, anime, and TCG. But your answer to that might be, so? What do I care? And yeah, you're right. Like, you don't have to personally care that there's going to be less merchandise and less TCG and less anime and all that. You don't have to care. That's fine. You don't, as a consumer, you choose what you purchase. That's the power that you have. But the company wants money. The company loves money. And if the company loves money, then they have to make sure that they do two things. Number one is they cannot lose too many fans. They have to make sure that they do at least do enough to preserve fans. Because if you lose longtime fans, that's how you lose revenue streams. Number two, they have to make a lot of stuff for you to buy. That's what they have to do. That's maybe not like the big things, but that's two very important things that need to make sure that they do. So I don't necessarily think the new Pokemon games are like really bad by any means. I do think they are trying, and I do think they are trying something new. Like, terrestrialization is a very interesting mechanic, and it works really well. It's probably the best mechanic that they've released. I like Mega Evolutions a lot, but competitively, it makes a lot of sense. And with the new Legends games, they're trying new gameplay styles, not sticking with the tried and true anymore. They're trying to branch out and do a little bit something different. They're making Pokemon champions for the more competitive players. So the competitive players can have their own area, and then they can try some more experimental things with the main series games. But man, oh man, some of the parts of these games is pretty bad, huh?
Breath of the Wild came out and no one would shut up about it, how it was a new, breathtaking, innovative, jaw-dropping, inspiring new video game. Don't we want that from something like Pokemon? I feel like these games always get a pass because they manage to sell so much, but it should be higher, shouldn't it?
I would say if... how is that bike stand up by itself? I don't see no bike rack. I don't see no stand. I would say if Scarlet and Violet didn't have the Pokemon franchise to back it up, if it was like Google Sloobers, Scarlet and Violet, and everything was exactly the same except it didn't have Pokemon in it, damn, that thing would not sell a single copy. Well, I mean, it would sell a single copy. I'm sure the developer's mom would buy it. And you might say, obviously, if there's no Pokemon in the Pokemon game, I'm not gonna buy it because you buy it for the Pokemon. But wouldn't it be nice to have a reason to buy it other than Pokemon? Wouldn't it be nice to have a reason to buy it because it was genuinely, incredibly well crafted? Apart from the fact that it's attached to the biggest media franchise in the world, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to get other people to buy it because it's such an engrossing and entertaining experience? It can surpass the fact that it is a Pokemon game and just go into its own area. Wouldn't that be nice?
Do we not want the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon? Or are we content with the... Okay, this guy's making some incredible points, and he has me completely sold, but I actually just watched his last podcast episode where he said some of this stuff in the episode. One of the top comments was, the games only make up 10% of Pokemon's total revenue, which... fan of the podcast. And
isn't that crazy?
I love that they left this comment because it also allowed me to get ahead of this one because what the piss? 10% of $100 billion, by the way, is still around $10 to $15 billion just for the video games, which is a whole Grand Theft Auto franchise.
Oh, wow. Okay. I mean, oh, wow. Okay. So, yeah. Pokemon does release a lot more games than Grand Theft Auto, but man, when it's Grand Theft Auto level, I thought it would be bigger. Isn't that crazy for me to say? I thought it would be bigger. I mean, 10 to 15 billion is still an incredibly large amount of money. Like that, oh my God, that is an unfathomable amount of money.
And I would just like to remind you, again, something I've already said, the merch, the anime, the new cards, all of the new merch, those come from the video games. So if the video games currently are only making 10% of the revenue, imagine if we made the video games,
really good.
Good.
That's what I was saying. Like, what if the games were good by their own rights? That they wouldn't even have to be attached to the franchise in order for them to be good. Because as it stands, if these games are released and they're not attached to the franchise, they're not really getting much of a look in. No one really is going to care much about them. They are mainly bought because they have Pokemon in them. But what if it was different?
Would then trickle down to all the new merch, plushies, and all of that, and boost those revenue and sales even more. I guess I just don't understand the argument that the Pokemon company makes too much money to try or bother with the video games anymore, when the video games are still making more money than 99% of the rest of the gaming industry. All right, anyway, back to this chump. Let me get to the point. I know Pokemon fans hate when other Pokemon fans complain about how the Pokemon games look. And if you try complaining this time around,
it is, I will admit, quite old, because we've heard about the trees and some Sword and Shield. Someone looked at a tree from a trailer or a tree from the game and I was like, ooh, tree. And then everyone was like, oh, come on, man. But being annoyed about a point doesn't mean that the point's not still valid or has some merit to it. It's the same thing as when someone does enough annoying things over and over again that everything they say becomes really annoying and you don't like them anymore. You just don't like that person. You just don't like that point. You don't like the talking point. You don't want to talk about it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's not valid or worth talking about though, because they could look a lot better. Those games definitely could look a lot better. I hope on the Nintendo Switch 2 things will, you know, get better, because let's admit, like, Black and White, really pretty games, I think. You know, the pixel style, I thought they looked really good.
Around about how Pokemon's DNA look,
they'll
say, but it looks so much better than Scarlet and Violet. And well, yeah, but that's a really low bar. And Game Freak are the ones that set that bar. This game isn't anywhere near the industry standard and looks worse than anything else Nintendo is doing, which is already being scrutinized for.
And this is all really unique art styles. Like the Paper Mario art style is really cool and fun. And then you have the Zelda one in the top right. That's really pretty. Little blocks, little bits and blocks. It's almost Lego-like, almost Lego. And then you have like the generic Mario art style in the bottom right that just has its own charm to it. And then you have like a special Mario Brothers art style, which is like cel-shaded in a way. There was all unique ways of building a design for a game. Whereas, you know, Scarlet and Violet doesn't really have a unique style.
For being behind the times. Saying that this is better than the previous amounts of terrible is like going to your job every day and just intentionally being the worst you could be. Just messing everything up. The worst employee this company has. But then like a year later, you actually start trying and you do a little bit better and expect to be praised for being slightly less shit. You could pick just about any first-party Nintendo game and compare it to ZA. Even the soon-to-be re-released Wii U game, Xenoblade X.
That's a Wii U game? Oh my god. Okay, that's kind of incredible. And I do feel bad because obviously the Japanese developers aren't going to watch these videos, but there clearly are a lot of people working really hard on these games because they have to make them, you know, quite quickly. And there's a lot of people that game development is not hard. The game design is not an easy thing to do. We have a lot of these really, really pretty looking games because people worked incredibly hard on them. And yeah, it's the biggest media franchise in the world. They probably could do a better job. In fact, they definitely could do a better job. But I don't want, I don't know, I just feel bad about the designer that might come across the videos and like, everyone's saying Scarlet and Violet looks really ugly and they're like, oh man, I mean, I was trying my best. Like, we didn't really have much time, and it was why does it keep going over there?
And it would be clear that this is not a Swish hardware issue, but an issue of a developer who is struggling to create games post the 3DS. So let's not do that. Let's not compare it to those other Nintendo games. Let's do what Pokemon fans like to do and only compare it to Pokemon's own games.
Yeah, I always think it's weird when Pokemon fans in general would only compare different Pokemon games to just two Pokemon games, as if it's in its own realm of existence, or as if the Pokemon fans just played Pokemon games, which that doesn't make any sense. That can't be true, surely, right? That can't be true. You guys have played other games. You've seen Baldur's Gate 3, right?
A nice little echo chamber for us to play around in, see how our voice sounds. Hello? We saw in Scarlet and Violet that Game Freak struggles to create competent game worlds that aren't full of glitches, bugs, and low-resolution textures, terrible frame rates, and assets stuck together with spaghetti and crazy glue. You just blink at this game wrong and you'll be falling through the floor. But I think the biggest offender here is that resolution. At the time, fans said, well, at least it looks better than Sword and Shield. However,
the thing is, I actually don't necessarily think it looks better than Sword and Shield in a lot of areas. I will say, the Sword and Shield wild area looks really bad. The Sword and Shield towns, they don't look too bad. In fact, there's some really pretty towns. I can't remember the name of it right now, but the one in the forest with the fairy type ship, that looks really cool. There's nothing really like that in Scarlet and Violet. Even Area Zero struggles. That would be an area that would be cool, maybe with a different art style. But man, that place struggles with these graphics.
Comparing Scarlet and Violet to the Pokemon ZA trailer, the new game does look a lot better.
In comparison.
First glance. Now, I want to say to Game Freak's credit, looking back at their other Pokemon reveal trailers, all these trailers seem to be rendered within the game. They hide absolutely nothing about the way that their games
Yeah, that's true. They are at least showing you exactly what you're gonna get.
look and play. So that gives us a very good, trustworthy bar that Pokemon Z and A is an in-game rendered trailer running on the hardware. And if this is true, I will say they've done a fantastic job at fixing resolutions and draw distances. All those jagged edges are completely gone. And I think that's why people look at these two images and think that this new one is so much better. But how did they do that? I think it's pretty clear if you really look at this, specifically the buildings, a way they managed to bring down those jagged edges is by just not having anything that would create a jagged edge. They've
I guess. Yeah. The thing is, you can see all these buildings. I wonder how many of these buildings you will actually be able to go into. Because we are, okay, in theory in the new game, we are restricted to the city. We don't know exactly if we are restricted to the city, but in theory, that's what everyone seems to think right now. If we're restricted to the city and you can't go in many of the buildings, then are you just playing a game in city streets and that's it? Is that the whole idea? Is the whole idea of the game during the day, you'll run around and you'll try and catch Pokemon in the wild area zones, in which case, first off, if you're not a Pokemon trainer, if you're Jimothy and you're going to your local job at an office to do data entry and you get like ambushed by a shift tree on the way to work because you took the wrong turn and you ended up in a wild area by accident, you're gonna hate Pokemon.
flattened out almost every texture and model. Specifically, all these very similar looking buildings throughout the city. In all three of the other Pokemon games on the Switch, Game Freak designed the buildings with intent and purpose. The architectural designs of the buildings, they had depth. They had balconies, awnings, brick, window sills, glass.
I will say, I really liked the design of some of the cities in Sword and Shield. It's very industrial. It's very... I mean, maybe I'm saying this because I'm British, and, you know, I have some bias towards things in Britain. Obviously, I like seeing things. I like seeing games built around Britain. You don't see it very often. It doesn't happen super often. What was the last British game that released? Atomfall? What was the last British game that released before that one? Sword and Shield, probably. I think it's really cool to have those little parts just sprinkled in. The art design in this is so interesting to look at.
Textures, concaves, you know, like intentional designs, man. Scarlet and Violet, for example, was set in Spain, and they clearly took those buildings as inspiration and went to work sculpting them, and they would look beautiful if you could see them through the jank. But you know, at least the thought was there. Here, almost every building has the same window, just Control-C and Control-V'd all over it. It's honestly giving Lego. I mean, they're just rectangles with stickers stuck to the front. It's also the same tactic they did use in Scarlet and Violet for the environments, and I broke
Damn, that's a big texture.
this down in my review of that game. They took one small section of texture and just copy-pasted it everywhere, hoping you wouldn't look at it for 2 seconds and accidentally notice. Incredibly lazy game development, and completely voids all personality and life from a city that's based on a city that is so filled with personality and life. Despite some people thinking that this is
It does look, I guess I'm playing devil's advocate here. It does kind of look a little bit like what you just showed. Like, obviously not the graphics, but like the architectural design of the buildings. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy.
Tokyo Tower. It's actually the Eiffel Tower. And this city bears resemblance to the city of Paris. In fact, if you take yourself
Because I'm just looking at the way the buildings are built. They're all like very cream white, and they have these long straight streets.
on Google Street View and you
Who's Who's reviewing the Eiffel Tower on Google? Come on, man.
Plop yourself right about here. I think I found the street that the trailer is actually set on.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Oh, my God. Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, like, there's less... Obviously, there's less things because there's a lot of trees to render. But wow, yeah, no, it looks like very, very similar. They have like the cream lighter buildings. They have those big open windows and a lot of them too.
Which is pretty cool. And credit to Game Freak that I managed to do that. And then I could tell what they were going for. But where Patterrz had these beautiful iron metal balconies, in Game Freak's rendition of that, they have these beautiful iron metal balcony.
I mean, at least, yeah, they're kind of like, they're kind of going for it a little bit.
I'm gonna... What? I'm actually quite speechless. This is not the way they did it in any of the other games. This is new. And also, Game Freak, by your own logic, if you were just going to copy-paste it, you could have just made one balcony and then copy-pasted that a bazillion times. Why this? I don't think they're even that lazy. I think there is something else going on here.
Maybe it's like a hardware issue. Maybe it's like I mean, not really a hardware issue since the Xenoblade Chronicles run on the Switch. Maybe there's some kind of limitation that's stopping them. A limit on the amount of textures you can use. A limit on how the building can protrude in a certain way. I'm not sure.
In Scarlet and Violet, despite how intentional those buildings were, from a distance, or really even up close, but definitely from a distance, they look like the low resolutions and lack of any kind of anti-aliasing.
But the idea of them is nice.
Shimmer and shine, but like in the worst way. So Game Freak, not knowing how...
Also, the lighting. You know what I've noticed about Scarlet and Violet is the lighting is really weird.
To fix this very basic issue.
Nothing seems to ever have sunlight on it. There seems to be no sunlight on any of the buildings. They seem to have this weird shadow on them at all times. Like all of them.
Wait, so Game Freak, not...
Like nothing seems to have... Why does everything look kind of dark? And then other parts look like there is sunlight on it. Like the tree looks like it has sunlight on it, but the street doesn't. It just doesn't at all.
Knowing how to fix this very basic...
But of course, the sun is like beaten down because you can see the way that the shadow from the character is. There should be. It's really weird.
Game Freak, not knowing how to fix this very basic issue, found yet another gameplay development workaround for Pokemon ZNA. Flat, lifeless buildings with a picture of what a nice building could look like, glued to the front. Now, you might say, does it really matter, Wood, what a building looks like? And
I think if you're making your entire region, your entire play area for the game be the city, then the city has to feel at least somewhat like a living, breathing city. It's one thing if you have a city but you have a whole region, so it's only a small part of it. But Lumio City is supposedly the entirety of the game, and we don't really necessarily know how many buildings we can go into. So is it a sacrifice so that you can go into interior areas? Not really sure. Maybe, potentially. But if you're going to have the character run around a city for 20, 30, maybe 40 hours, potentially, the city has to look really good. It has to be unique. It has to have life breathe into it. Interesting parts. Why give the player a reason to run around the city other than... You have to go to point B so you can catch a Kangaskhan. Yeah, and then you have to get the Kangaskhanite, so you gotta go to the other part of point. You gotta go to point C now. But if there's nothing to look at while you're doing that, then it's just kind of sad to run around in, isn't it?
A video game. And I would say, yes, if it looks like this, I'm gonna say something. But also, this whole game is set in a city. When you go to New...
That's exactly what I just said. If the entire game is set in a city, then the city has to look nice. The city has to have some life to it. Otherwise, the entire game, you're running around and you're just sad and you don't even know why. You don't even know why you're sad. There's just something in the back of your head while you're running around. You're just like, why is this not as engaging or fun as I thought it would be? What is happening here? Why do I not like running around this city? It's because there's nothing interesting to look at.
New York City, and you want to take in the sights. What do you look at? Is it the rats in the street? Is it the weird people dancing on the train that you try really hard not to make eye contact with because you're scared? No. It's the building.
But at least there is those things that you can look at. At least there are things that you can look at. That's important. You have to have things that you can look at.
I'm going to be looking
landmarks.
At these.
Apart from, obviously, the big tower is big tower. Big tower is very interesting. Big tower is really cool. You can't just have one big tower and then be like, all right, that's enough. we can ship the game now.
Whole time I play, and they look like this, but some of them have some sort of depth to them. But clearly, this is also just one window design that has been copy and pasted several times. What are these windows supposed to be? Or even the ones next to them? Like, I don't really know what I'm looking at. But what I do know is my favorite kind of balcony JPEG is the balcony JPEG that has a flower JPEG on top of it. I mean, that just really ties the room together. But not a single window in this entire trailer has any kind of reflection at.
Yeah, you can't look through any of them. Now, okay, you don't necessarily need to go into anything, but having a world where it's just a city, you need to at least be able to look through some of the windows. Like, for example, below me with that is these guys that they're ground level, the windows, the big windows at ground level, instead of, you know, being open potentially to a shop or to someone's flat or someone's house. Like, of course, you don't want to look directly into people's flats and houses. That's a little bit creepy. But everything, instead of being visible, is just this black blue combination. Every single one is. And there's hundreds of them. As you're walking through the city, you're just gonna see hundreds of rectangles that are just black and blue with nothing visually interesting to see.
Or presents itself as an actual window. They all just look like Game Freak Googled the word blue and used the first thing that came up in Google image results. Even these huge shop windows.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a big shop window. You could look in. You could see a bakery. You could see a hair salon. Maybe you can't go into it. And it would be a little bit sad if you could see into it, but you couldn't go into it. But at least there's something to look at there.
Which, if we go back and we look at the actual Patterrz street, you can see a lot of these buildings have little storefronts under them. So this would be a really nice opportunity to fill this storefront window with a store. But nope, just a J.
It's just nothing. Yeah, I really agree with him on this point. There is just nothing there, which is sad. And like I said, you might not think it's important. You might not think it's important for the gameplay. You might not think it's important for the story. That's fine. I think it's important for the vibe of running around in this city. That if you have nothing to ever look at, then there will be something in the back of your mind that's just telling you, this is not interesting.
JPEG, we even get a close-up of this building as we climb all the way up like the world's ugliest elevator. They're using a JPEG for the whole building, but they couldn't even use a high-quality JPEG. Like, they couldn't even render in the JPEG. Who is designing these? Oh, at least it looks better than the other Pokemon games, does it? Does it? Because 6 years ago, in Sword and Shield, the windows actually had reflections. They weren't true reflections. They didn't actually.
At least you could kind of like look in the shops a little bit too.
Anything that was happening.
I mean, yeah, a lot of the windows, you see the windows like at the front there, they don't really have anything going on there.
Like it was serving.
You don't have to look through every single window. You can have the curtains drawn on most of them. But yeah, if you look into the house, you can see like the curtain is slightly drawn and you can see the warmth from like a fire or a light from inside that signifies that there is something in here. There is life in here.
Visible, and it got the point across, and honestly, looks pretty nice. But I guess this is yet another way that Game Freak found to pare down development, because they even did away with those in Scarlet and Violet. In fact, the only window I could find in the entire Scarlet and Violet game, and I had to ride around that sucker for way too long, by the way, I forgot how janky it was this one. And I don't even understand what the hell is going on.
Yeah, I don't know what is inside that. Is that someone's office? It doesn't look like it's anything in there. I mean, it kind of looks like there's 4 windows in there. Is it a clock tower?
Up there. It's just very confusing. Yeah, hi, me again. Sorry, I'm filming this in the future after I recorded a ton more gameplay for Scarlet and Violet. I actually didn't remember how bad this truly was. These characters popping in and out, seemingly at random. It's not even distance-based. And by the way, when I say disappear, I literally mean disappear. You can't go and find them again. They're just erased from the game. This video isn't supposed to be about Scarlet and Violet, but my god. Also, I was recording footage for the video and I saw this, and I never noticed this before, but it's because I'm so obsessed with Windows right now. Another cheap tactic that Game Freak does in their game is they have this placeholder unrendered in city that looks terrible from a distance, but the placeholder city doesn't have lights in the windows. So when you get a little closer to the city, it pops and fully renders in the actual city. And because it's...
I think like placeholder textures when you're far away is just like a common game development thing. I think like most games do that, is you won't get the full texture until you're near it to save on processing power. But they could have at least had like the windows have lights on, maybe like go off like a day-night thing, because that's what the actual textures do. That would have been probably better. Why is that building so much lighter than it? Oh, okay, that's just a light building. Okay, sure. Yeah, no, they definitely should have made a nighttime placeholder. Maybe they just didn't make one.
Turn on. They didn't even make an unrendered inversion with lights on for the nighttime, because why bother? But that window and subsequently the building that it's attached to brings me to another very good point. All three of these games have something in common. Well, graphics. So I guess two things. They all have one nice building. Each game has a central location building that looks night and day better than any other structure in the game. Like,
Wait, I'm trying to think of, oh, okay. So you have the academy. Yeah, you can go into the academy. That's like the central point because you're a student. I'm trying to think of what it would be for Legends Arceus. Is it like the main building that you go into to get like the quests and all that in Legends Arceus? And then in Sword and Shield, to be fair, Sword and Shield has a lot of nice looking buildings, but I suppose it'd be like Rose's Tower, right?
In Scarlet and Violet, it was the school, which looked fantastic. And then in Arceus, it was whatever that big building was at the
Yeah, like the main Arceus building, and then scattered around it is just a bunch of houses, I suppose.
In the village that they did stuff in. I don't know, I skipped the story. And my assumption here is that it's a tactic to kind of trick our brains into thinking the game actually looks nicer than it does.
I'm gonna be honest, I spent maybe total about 5 minutes in the school in Scarlet and Violet. I didn't do a single thing in that area. I didn't do any lessons, not a single lesson. I haven't learned a bloody thing. The only game that I've done lessons in is Bully, or when it was released in the UK, it's called Canis Candom Edit, and it was the Bully game that was created by Rockstar, where you could run around and, you know, beat nerds up and shove them into lockers and all that. You could do lessons in that game. That was the only game that I've ever done lessons in.
Because the building that you might have gone to most frequently actually didn't look that bad. And for example, in Pokemon ZNA, we get in this trailer a shot of the main character picking out of the 3 Pokemon, and there is this, quite frankly, gorgeous structure behind him. Just wonderful stonework, designs, there's arches, there's depth,
looks
vines,
good.
And
Are they like Pokemon engraved on the side of it too? I don't know.
There's possibly even a reflective window in this sucker. This clearly
No, they can't put windows in
demonstrates
buildings?
that Game Freak can design buildings like this. They don't, though. They either just, I guess, don't care about the rest of the game, or maybe they don't have the time, maybe they're being rushed, or maybe it's all of these.
I will say the cities in Scarlet and Violet look weird because there's no like loading zone when you go into it. They're just like part of the world, which is, you know, admirable. It's cool that there's no loading zones. Obviously, you don't want to be able to, you have to load places. But when you walk towards a city, it's like a structure of buildings in like a cube. Like, for example, take the town that Larry's gym is in. It's like a structure of buildings and like a square, and you can see it from a while away. And it just looks weird. It looks kind of out of place because it's not very big. And it looks like it's trying to be something much bigger than it actually is. I mean, there's some cities that do look, you know, pretty nice, like the city that Iono's gym is in. I can't even remember the city names. This is ridiculous. I can't even remember any of them. And the city that Brassius's gym is in, they look fine. They look all right. They're interesting enough visually. But some of them just look weird and off-putting.
Extra designs and details just makes the game look a little worse.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the structure of some of the cities in Sword and Shield are really sick. Like the big castle-like thing. The problem is you can't do anything in this castle. You go into the castle, it's like, it's the gym, but you can't do anything in it. Like, this is massive, massive structure that you can just kind of look at from a distance, which is sad. And then there's like a normal 4-bedroom detached house that a family of 4 lives in.
There's more things to render. I mean, God forbid we render in a JPEG of a building, let alone an actual building. They don't want to bog the game down with anything that might hurt the overall presentation. A great example here of what I'm looking for, bare minimum, from these games is to look at Scarlet and Violet again, but in 4K. The low resolution of this game on the Switch is not the Switch's fault. These games are very basic. It's just that Game Freak doesn't know how to optimize or build a 3D world. That's not a controversial thing to say. We've seen it countless times in other games on the console, and I know the console can't do 4K, but this is what the game looks like when you fix the resolution.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, that
okay.
didn't really help my point. No, I'm kidding. It's
well, I mean, it kind of does a lot. Obviously, you don't need 4K, but you just need to fix. Oh my god, you just need to fix those jagged edges. Those jagged edges are so gross. Like, obviously, the texture quality is improved in the 4K version. It might be hard to see because you're watching a YouTube video of me watching a YouTube video, and inherently, YouTube video like compresses things and makes them look a lot worse than they actually would look. But just looking at these two images side by side, wow, there is a massive difference. Just the shadows. Oh my god, the shadows make a massive difference here. There's no jagged edges on anything. Everything is quite smooth. And oh my god, wow. Yeah, it does make a huge difference. So there is some potential here if they could fix a lot of these issues. I mean, Switch is old hardware. Switch is quite weak hardware, especially in these days. Like, Switch 2 could definitely help with a lot of those things. Is it going to help with, everything? Probably not.
Night and day difference. And you can see what they designed. And this is probably what it actually looks like on their end.
The 60 FPS looks a bit weird.
When they made the game on a PC before they had to scale it down somehow for the Switch. So rather than trying to figure this out, they just took out anything in the game that would look bad in low resolution rather than fixing the resolution. If you look at the streets of Pokemon ZNA as a whole, it gets its point across and you get what they're going for. But as soon as you look at any one element on its own, the flaws start to show. The fact that they still can't design anything with a high enough poly count to actually make it round.
I mean, the cake looks nice, right? The cake looks tasty.
That no NPC in this game has a shadow.
Oh yeah, they don't have shadows. That's tough. I mean, you really start to notice a lack of shadows when you get like on the higher end of graphics.
And that goes for most objects too, except this awning. Based on everything else in this picture, why does it even have a shadow? Yeah, I just wanted to take one more look at this awning with you guys. Why is it here? There's plenty of shop fronts, even in this same image and other images, that don't have awnings. What is the point of the awning?
Yeah, what is it supposed to be protecting? It's it's stopping the sunlight from getting into like a couple of the windows. Yeah, what is the purpose of this? Why did they put that there? Like, I'm trying to get into the mind. Like, it's a very small thing. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter for the overall game. But I'm just trying to think, like, why did they put it there in the first place?
Why is it only on 3 of the 5 windows? What is it covering? There's no tables. There's no chairs. Also, why is the awning like 0.5 millimeter thick? One gust of wind and that sucker's gone. When Sword and Shield revealed and I had an issue with the trees, I became the tree guy for a minute. Everyone was like, what is the problem with the trees? Who cares about the trees? I feel like this time I'm going to be the window guy or the awning guy. Crap.
Yeah, the window guy. It might actually be the window guy.
Out over windows and an awning. And once again, it does seem like NPCs are incapable of moving around the game world. They just stand there lifelessly. I mean, this was the case.
I mean, there was like a couple of people walking around. There's a game called The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. It was released in 2006. It's one of my favorite games of all time. The NPCs in those games have real schedules that they're all put on. Every NPC has a schedule. They have a job that they do. They have a schedule. They will wake up at a certain time. They will eat their breakfast. They will go to their job. They will do their job, and they will go home, and they will read a book or something like that. That was released in 2006. And I can't help but think, why have there not been that many more games with NPCs that actually feel like they have lives apart from the player, a world that feels like it is alive? I mean, I assume it's a very, very difficult thing to do, but if they could do it all the way back then, surely it should be capable now. Maybe they just don't care enough. It's not like a priority. Again, maybe it's a time thing, or maybe they just didn't think about it. Genuinely, it could be the thing where they just didn't think about, like, oh yeah, maybe the NPCs like should have actual lives. That's, ooh, wow, we spent so much time making those cool clouds up there. Those clouds look really pretty, by the way. But they really do just stand. And so, yeah, like a shopkeeper should be at their shop, right? But some of the NPCs maybe shouldn't stand for 12 hours a day. That feels bad on the legs. They're gonna develop some kind of knee issue before their 40s.
In Pokemon Arceus as well, even 60 hours into my playthrough.
Like, she's just sweeping that. She just sweeps that for hours. Hundreds of hours, she just sweeps. What is she even sweeping? There's nothing there.
This old lady is still sweeping that one spot. I'm sorry, honey. If it ain't clean now, it probably ain't gonna be. In Scarlet and Violet, there were some characters that had animations, like a little jig, and it looked...
Oh, like, that's cute. I mean, that makes the world feel a little bit better. There's a kid like, yeah. But then you kind of just look at them and they're just like, yeah, for hours. I was like, okay, at some point you got to get tired of jumping, right?
Like all those have been stripped out. And then there were even a few NPCs that would walk around. But due to the game having absolutely terrible draw distances and crazy pop in and pop out, those characters would disappear and reappear like ghosts. And Game Freak, rather than try and
The thing is, the NPCs that walk about, I think, don't they just go from like one spot to another spot and then they turn around and they just walk back again? Like if you were to follow this NPC, they look like they're walking around. It's like, okay, they look like they're walking around. Then you just like stop and turn around and walk back again. That does kind of take you out of the game a little bit.
Figure out how to not have that happen, decided to glue their feet to the ground tighter than they glued the JPEGs to the buildings. Of course, that one is an assumption because they haven't played the full game. Maybe they do move around. A lot of this is based on just the trailer, and I feel like some people are going to say, well, you haven't even played the full game yet. And again, this trailer is rendered in game. I'm assuming
that's true. I mean, like you obviously like you do see people walking around in the clips that he's shown as well. Like you just saw like
the full game yet. And again, this trailer,
like that, there's people walking around like right there. I imagine they're also going to be like the other NPCs that will walk to a certain point, stop, turn around, and just walk back again. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll like go into a building. Maybe there'll be NPCs that come out of buildings. I guess they can't open the doors, so they just materialize, really. But they come out of the building, walk to another building, go into that building potentially.
In game.
Like there's someone that really wants to go from a haircut to a chocolate shop all the time. They love it there. They think it's the best.
Assuming based on all their other trailers, and this is what they've shown us, and I'm literally only talking about what I'm seeing in this trailer. I'm sure I'll find a whole piss of things once I start playing the game to complain about. But why wait? How about the absolutely no ground animations for these sand isles who look more...
Yeah, I mean, there's at least like I guess, yeah, there should be like an effect or a texture that comes up from the ground to signify burrowing, right? There should be something like that.
Or like they're glitching through the floor, then swimming through the dirt. This few second shot right here is absolutely insane to me.
What is Larvitar looking at?
Pokemon and the people are fully rendered in, but nothing else in the shot is. The floor is blurry, the brick is blurry, and that's before we even talk about the fact this is a moving shot, and every frame of the animation has the floor down here glitching on the wall.
Yeah, it is. The floor seems to be moving for some reason, which is, you know, slightly concerning. If I look down and the floor started moving betwixt my feet, I would be a little bit concerned. Yes.
And this is what they chose to show us. And don't get me wrong, the Pokemon look fantastic. The moves and the animations
the
of
grass
that,
is nice.
the battling, really flashy. I even like the way the UI looks. It's sleek, it's nice. And some people will say it's a Legends game. It's a spin-off of the main series. It's not supposed to look as nice. But then that goes against the people that are saying that it looks better than Scarlet and Violet.
And also, I'm pretty sure they said that the Legends games are like main series games.
It was a main series game. So which is it? Arceus used a more cel-shaded style of visual, which I think actually helped hide a lot of the imperfections. When that game came out, I don't think I really even complained about the way the game looked. I actually kind of liked it. This new Legends game, though, has seemingly dropped that, and they've moved towards the more mainline series art direction.
This game feels, I don't know what it is, more squeaky clean? Is that a weird way to see it? It feels like squeaky. It feels like shiny. It feels like everything has had like a sponge rubbed on it with some soap.
It's not cel-shaded.
By the way, can I just say, I actually love this clip here because it signifies that if you use Stealth Rock, you can use that as a way to like deny an area of battle for the opponent so that they have to attack through the Stealth Rocks in order to get to you. Alternatively, they can like go around, so you can use Stealth Rocks to protect yourselves from certain moves, which I think is cool. Like he uses Flame Wheel, and then it hits the Stealth Rocks. Obviously, it's quite effective, so it kills, but it hits the Stealth Rocks. It protects the Hippowdon from the move. I just think that the whole battle thing is going to be a lot more interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I hope that there's some kind of online play, even if it's just like a casual thing, not a true competitive one. It would just be interesting to have a different style of online play that we could try out.
It's not cel-shaded. You know, I struggle to call this realistic, but I guess you know what I mean. And this game, at face value, does look better than Scarlet and Violet. Again, because they stripped out anything and made everything flat to trick your brain into thinking that it actually does look good when it really doesn't. But there are some things, to be fair, that legitimately do look a lot nicer. The inside of buildings here have a much more warm and high resolution.
Yeah, the lighting is, I mean, the lighting isn't perfect, but the lights look nice. The lights do look warm against the kind of green wallpaper.
It feels cozy. I took some examples from other games set in similar office style buildings. It's very clear that the new one doesn't look as bad. Another thing that stood out to me immediately is the grass textures.
Yeah, the grass like floating in the breeze. That looks nice. It'd be cool if you could burn the grass with like a fire type move, but I don't think they're gonna let you do that.
I think the grass in ZNA looks particularly pleasant, but you compare it to Scarlet and Violet, and what were they thinking? It's like a sea of Lamborghini green. Like, it is neon. It's probably as green as the green screen I'm standing on. Put me in the grass, Zach. Hello. This was a whole ass game we were handed just a few years ago that we all paid $60 for, complete with 12 FPS gameplay and more bugs than.
Do you guys remember the gym challenge from the 7th gym where you have to like press the buttons and it's super laggy and you have to like it's like a quick time event and you have to press all these buttons except like it runs at like 20 FPS
under a rock in my garden.
Whoa.
I guess if ZA is good enough to make people finally look back at Scarlet and Violet and realize that they were ripped off in 2022, I mean, I'll take it. I made a video about that game and people were equally upset with me for that. I feel like
I think Scarlet and Violet was a good game for like collectors or maybe like competitive players because it made competitive playing a lot easier. Obviously, it was a good game for me because these like Then We Fight videos we do are like super easy to make on that game, and there's a lot of variety and there's a lot of potential of what you can do with it. I think just for like a casual playthrough of the game, it does struggle.
This video, I've been really trying to get ahead of anything that people will try to say to invalidate my opinion that the game looks bad. And I do feel like it's a losing battle. I mean, on my podcast recently, I pointed out that the games still look pretty rough. And one of the top comments said I was wrong and that they actually really like the way the game looks so far because Tech Pig is back. And yeah, he is.
I mean, I will say, I do think specifically that Pokemon fans, I'll just say like Pokemon fans in general, obviously this doesn't apply to everyone, but there's a lot of people that have, I'll say, very low standards because, they haven't really there's not been a single Pokemon game that we could really say is one of the greatest games of all time. It's more so like, I like the creatures, I like the characters. But I also think that maybe the way that people approach the Pokemon franchise is different to other games. A lot of the times when you buy like another installment in franchise, say it's Call of Duty or Battlefield, maybe you're buying it. Maybe that's a really bad example, actually. You're probably buying Call of Duty because you just like Call of Duty. But if you buy Battlefield, you're buying it because not only do you like the franchise, but you're expecting a really high quality experience that you can really sink your teeth into and enjoy. But I don't think that Pokemon fans buy Pokemon games because they think the game will be good. I think they buy it because they like the franchise, more so than anything else.
People even calling me a snob, that I'm moving the goalpost for Game Freak. I'm not sure where the goalpost is for Game Freak in my mind, but I'm telling you now, they've never even been in the same zip code as that motherfucker. I can't say it's better than before. I will concede to at least it being different. And it is different. This is not how they've ever designed buildings before. That is very different.
I will say, they are definitely like trying something new. I have to at least give it to that. Like maybe the graphics department isn't on their ball, but they are trying new ideas. They're trying something different, which you have to give. I'm not saying you don't have to give them credit. I'll give them a little bit of credit for that person.
But in doing that, they have managed to clean up the resolutions and that weird jank that we saw in previous games, and some people might actually prefer that trade-off. But I'm just here asking, in 2025, why can we not have both? I'll apologize for this, but sometimes I wonder if it's me, my ADHD, or whatever is wrong with me mentally, where I hyperfixate on something, but when
No, I do the same thing. And I've been talking about this for a while. Wait, is that window like clipping through the building? Or is it a different, I think this is a different building, right? The window's not just like halfway into this wall, is it?
I look at these buildings, or if you want to call these textures, or this face mask, I get offended. I can't help but stare at them the whole time, and they're just preventing me from being able to fully immerse myself in the experience and feel like that 10-year-old boy that would just want to go around catching Pokemon and ignoring everything the adults are saying, which I still do even now in real life. I ignore everything people are. That's probably it's ADHD. Ultimately, if the game is fun, I agree the game is fun, but I can't help.
I also really like how that when you just knock out a Pokemon, you can just you just have the opportunity to catch it now. I mean, that's pretty sick too. What? This city is so weird. This city doesn't make any sense to me. You're telling me they've cordoned off parts of the city? Don't people live here? There are buildings here. Have they cordoned off part of like a residential area so that... What is this? They've cordoned off part like a residential area with buildings, a lot of really high-rise buildings around it so that you can have Pokemon roam around in it and that will attack you potentially on sight. Wild animals that are just allowed to be around, that have incredible powers, that could burn down buildings, that could destroy the infrastructure of the city, that could flood them within an instant by just using a single move. They've cordoned off parts of the city, just have these Pokemon around here. That seems so weird. As a passionate city planner, of which I am not, that seems like a crazy idea to me.
But feel gaslit that this is acceptable game development from Game Freak.
People live there. I mean, people literally live in those areas, right? You go outside and you're like, oh, well, I can't go and get any milk. There's a Baneri outside that's going to quick attack me.
At this point, there is no reason for their games not to be in a better place. Not to be in the same or better place than games like Mario, Zelda, Pikmin, Xenoblade, or any other Nintendo IP. Stubbornness. It has to be. It's focusing in on that tight release window. Since despite the games being the main source of fandom, the merchandise is where the real money is. It honestly, it feels like we're being taken advantage of. It offends me. Does it not offend you? Are you not offended? They just take advantage of Pokemon fans, knowing full well they...
I think we're all just like apathetic to it at this point. Like even if you acknowledge that, yeah, we're probably being like taken advantage of, but I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm probably still gonna buy it though. There are a lot of people that, due to the quality of the games, don't buy these games anymore, which is fair. And a lot of people just grow out of the franchise as well, which, you know, I did around the time that Pokemon Black and White came out and I was in high school. I just grew out of the franchise. I don't really care so much. And then I kind of go back into it. Why? Because I have like a childhood passion that has carried with me almost my entire life for just these cute little creatures. And I think I had a lot more energy for calling this kind of stuff out many years ago, or not many years ago. I would call this kind of stuff out on stream a lot, and I would get flack for it. And at this point, I'm just like, you know what? I have my own opinion of how it is, but I don't want to be overly negative in my streams or my videos. Like, yeah, the problems are there, but if I bring too much attention to it, or if I only talk about that, it becomes a complaining, negative experience that isn't very fun for the viewer. So personally, yeah, I do feel sad that the games aren't better. I do wish they were better, and maybe they will get better or higher in quality, but I don't really have the energy to talk about it as much now. I think there's a fly in my room. What the
can phone in the games and we'll buy them anyway because it's Pokemon. You love Pokemon, right? Why don't you buy this Wiglet plushie and this Victory Bell plushie, and please don't, whatever you do, don't combine them. There is 200 people working at Game Freak, which prospectively is not a lot of people. Studios like Rockstar, Naughty Dog, Bethesda, they have thousands of employees. I think Game Freak should be on these studios' level, if not a little higher. But we don't want to...
And it's crazy because Rockstar, Naughty Dog, and Bethesda release a game like once every like 5 to 8 years. You know that new Elder Scrolls game is not going to come out for a long time, he said, sadly realizing that I might never see the Elder Scrolls 10. I might actually die of old age.
The waters with all of these employees. Like thousands, that's too much. I understand and I respect keeping a team small, but 200 at this point might be a bit too small, don't you think?
I also think that the Game Freak does get like help from other companies too, that they have other companies handling certain areas of development. So I don't think it's necessarily just 200 people. Like Game Freak might have 200 employees, but they do outsource some of the work to other companies. I think.
Xenoblade's developer Monolith Studios has 300 developers, and their games only sell a couple million units. Pokemon sells over 20 million. Something's not adding up. And Xenoblade, with even just 100 extra people, manages to make games that look like this.
And they also release games, I would assume, a lot less frequently. I don't know if necessarily like adding more people would make the games better. You know, the too many cooks thing. Too many cooks in the kitchen is gonna spoil us too, and all that. So it might not necessarily help. I definitely think that more time and a more spaced out release schedule would probably help the games be of higher quality. Like, imagine, say, you have one game per generation, but that game is really, really, really high quality, really well done, and impresses everyone. That could be preferable to having more releases that are really not that good.
It's almost like having some extra.
And they kind of, to be honest, they kind of have slowed down on those kind of releases a lot recently. We say we get like a Pokemon game every year, but they've been doing DLC as opposed to third versions. But those third versions, they weren't really their own games, were they? Like Ultra Sun and Moon versus Sun and Moon, that's not a new game. That's a new heads-up display and some extra cutscenes. That's what that is. A couple of extra Pokemon, oh, that doesn't take a year to make. And the DLC for different games like the Indigo Disc and the Isle of Armor for Sword and Shield, I think there's more so just to fill the gap between the big releases that they want to do. So I feel like maybe they've always had a more spaced out release schedule and we just didn't really think about it in that way.
People on board.
But maybe a little bit, even more time could be preferable.
Helped. And it's not just beautiful visuals that the Xenoblade team are putting together either. It's crazy over-the-top animated cutscenes and full voice acting. Breath of the Wild also had a 300-person team, and it took them 4 years to make that game. Mario Odyssey had 360 people that took them 3 years to make that game.
Damn, that seems to be like the sweet spot. Between 300 and 400 people and between 3 and 4 years to make a game. That seems to be the Nintendo sweet spot of how to make something really good.
Game Freak is understaffed, but they are in no way underfunded. I want to touch on something I said earlier, and that's that people always say, well, the games still sell. And yes, they still sell. They're one of the best-selling game franchises of all time, but when you...
They could sell a lot more, potentially. They could attract a lot more fans, potentially, as well. They could build up a lot more excitement and hype because a lot of the online discourse for what I see about new Pokemon games being showcased is that, oh, it's another gross, ugly looking Pokemon game. Uh-oh, yeah, here we go. It's gonna be like mostly the same thing again. Yeah, it looks bad. Game Freak, why aren't you doing a better job? Why can't Pokemon make better games? Literally, most of the online discourse is why can't Pokemon make better games when a new game is advertised? And then you have the other side, which is like, oh, Chikorita's in this one. Let's go.
Look at the franchise perspectively and how many millions, if not a billion people love the property and the franchise that is Pokemon. Why aren't more people buying the games? Yeah, 20 million's a lot. So's 40 million. So's 50. You know, if some of these other...
Yeah, I do think that, I mean, Animal Crossing definitely had a boost by being in the pandemic saga, whereas like everyone was looking for something to pass the time and Animal Crossing just came out just the right time. It is a single game as well, so it doesn't have the Scarlet and Violet, oh, some people buy both thing, even though I don't think many people buy both. I mean, I do, obviously, but I don't think many people do that. But Pokemon games certainly have the potential to sell way more than they do now.
Franchises like Animal Crossing can break 50, something that most people probably didn't even know what that was.
You know, I'm actually curious. I wonder how many copies Baldur's Gate sold. Baldur's Gate 3 has sold 15 million copies. Okay. I mean, oh, that was a year ago. So, I mean, it might be somewhere closer to, 16, 17, 18 million at this point. And that's a niche game. That's a really niche game that is really, really high quality. I mean, there's not many people out there really hankering for a good Dungeons and Dragons game with isometric gameplay and turn-based combat based off of a certain era of Dungeons and Dragons. It's very, very niche. Animal Crossing obviously has much wider appeal. What was Breath of the Wild sales data? Breath of the Wild has sold 34 million copies, and I'm going to say it. This may be I don't think this is controversial. I think Pokemon has more fans overall than Zelda does. I mean, I might be in my own little cubby hole. I do not believe that Zelda, the Legend of Zelda series, has more fans than Pokemon or has reached the kind of mainstream appeal that Pokemon has. They just made a really good game. They made a really, really, really good game. And they outsold Scarlet and Violet, which should be, by measure, a bigger franchise than Zelda is. Even Tears of the Kingdom, the sequel has almost outsold Scarlet and Violet as well because they made a really good game. It was great.
New Horizons came out? Why can't the world's largest franchise that literally any grandma could probably point at a Pikachu and say its name? Why are they only selling 20 million? Maybe because the games actually aren't that good. It's just that a lot of us are holding on to a dream.
I mean, the real test is take the Pokemon out the Pokemon game and replace it with something else. How well does the game sell then? How well does the game sell when it has to stand on its own merits and isn't propped up by the fact that it has, you know, your favorite little guy in it?
Played Pokemon throughout the generations. And ironically, as I've said before, they really struggle to evolve. We didn't even need great graphics back in the day. When I was a kid, it was black and white and little itty bitty sprites, and I still had an absolute blast. But at this point, I would almost rather they just go back to doing sprites, because that's seemingly what they do best.
To be honest, I would be down for an experiment where they make a sprite-based game on the Switch too. Just an experiment. Maybe we could do it, you know, in a remake or something like that. You know, like turn Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl into like a sprite-based game and really make it look beautiful with those sprites. Just as an experiment, I just want to see how it would go. Because I'm not necessarily hyper attached to like a big 3D world. I don't think that open world games are necessarily even that great. I think that linear experiences usually are higher quality and more enjoyable for myself personally. So, you know, yeah, you take away take away the open world. I don't need it. That's fine. Go back to a sprite-based graphic style and just see what you can do with it on the new hardware. I mean, I'd just be interested to see what it looks like.
Desperate for answers, I thought maybe ChatGPT would know. And I asked her.
Oh?
And the answer she gave me
What?
was so painfully abundantly
okay.
obvious that it was staring me straight in the face the whole time, and I just couldn't see it. This is what ChatGPT said.
Pokemon sells regardless of quality. Even when Pokemon games launch with issues, they still break record sales. Game Freak may not feel the need to expand drastically if their current model continues to be profitable. Scarlet and Violet sold over 22 million copies despite performance issues, so the financial incentive to increase staff significantly isn't there.
She then goes on to say,
Could Game Freak expand? Yes, they could hire more developers to improve technical quality, but their collaborative approach, fast turnaround, and cost efficiency seem to be priorities over AAA scale productions. Unless Pokemon fans stop buying the games, Game Freak probably won't feel pressured to grow too much.
and she's right.
Yeah, I do think there's some truth to that, but I also think that ChatGPT would just spit out what everyone has said online because ChatGPT just learns from what other people say for the most part. So I feel like in terms of a reasoning for why people do things, an AI just defaults to what the common idea is online. Maybe I'm wrong on that because that's where they get their information from, right? That's how they learn. The model learns based off of information that is fed into it. And the information fed into it is stuff that you can find from websites.
I'm gonna buy the new game because I'm a giant hypocrite and I'm not part of the problem. I am the problem.
Oh yeah, no, dude, me too. I'm gonna buy new games. I'm gonna buy the new games day one. What do you mean? I'm gonna be streaming that shit day one. Are you kidding me?
But at least I can accept it. You know, I guess I could have just asked ChatGPT that to begin with and saved days of time writing this script, but I'm gonna ask ChatGPT to end this video and I'm gonna present it the way they wrote it. Plagiarism. Is it?
Okay.
End of the day, Pokemon games may always look a little rough around the edges, but hey, as long as they keep selling like rat candies on the black market, Game Freak have no reason
Did they
to
say
change.
that?
So until the day that Pikachu's cheeks has RTX lighting and a wild Bidoof doesn't drop to 5 FPS, we'll just have to accept that the Pokemon franchise is the biggest in the world, running off of nostalgia and a dream. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And
I think we had a good discussion here today, and I think we can have a good discussion in the comments. As always, as I said before, please be respectful towards everyone. There's no reason to attack anyone for their opinions. It's totally fine. There's no need to get super passionate and defensive about, you know, your favorite thing. It's okay. It's fine to like it. I love Pokemon too, but it's okay. And I think it's actually good to draw attention to the worst parts about it so that it hopefully will be improved in the future. That's what I'd like to end this on. And please go subscribe to Beat 'em Ups.